Hey, what is up, everybody?
Welcome back to Mile Higher Podcast, episode 122. Today we are going to be diving into the NXIVM Cult and Keith Raniere. And if you've never heard of this, it's going to be pretty shocking to you.
It's crazy.
It's some mind-blowing stuff that this actually exists. It's been very highly requested, and we're both really interested in cults and people like Keith. And,
people that just think they're, above everybody else, or that they've been, granted these special powers and abilities. So therefore, that gives them the right and ability to control others. And really what he creates is a sex slavery cult.
So last week we tried something new for the show. We moved our intro topics to the end to try to appeal to everybody, because we had gotten a lot of comments saying, just over the years that we've done the show, saying that they would prefer the topics be at the end, or that we just don't have them because they want to get into the main topic. Someone's on YouTube, they see a video about a certain case, they click on it and they want to know about that case, and we do intro topics. So we thought that was the majority of you that felt that way. We were clearly wrong, because there was a lot of feedback from you guys saying that you like the intro topics in the beginning, that it's a good warm up for the show, that it felt weird having them at the end. And we also felt weird about it.
Yeah, it really threw us off. I feel like, because, by the end, covering these topics and the topics that we do cover are very taxing and just mentally draining. By the end of it, we're like so mentally exhausted by talking about these things. And so to then have to go and do talk about the news this week and stuff is just like, we're a little burnt out by the end. Totally. So I think it just works better. And to be fair, we do put timestamps in the description, and, we'll try to make it easier to find for those that are maybe listening.
Yeah, we're
so that you can skip ahead, because we do try to put that in there for you guys that do want to just get straight to the main topic. And, that way, what timestamp you need to go to in order to get right into it, if that's what you want to do. So.
And we really like it the way that it was too. It does feel like a warm up for us to kind of get going. It felt weird just jumping right into the main topic. We're so used to doing it this way that this is this is how we do things. And if you're used to our show, this is clearly how you like it as well. Because we weren't expecting so many people to not be happy with that change. So we're switching it back. Intro topics will now be in the intro again. So going into our first intro topic for today, it sounds like TikTok is on its way out, possibly.
Which is hilarious, because you're its biggest fan.
Yes. Okay.
Seriously, I hear TikTok.
I'm going to get a lot of hate for that.
All day.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of people aren't going to like it because they know it's some bullshit, and they know I should know better, and I probably shouldn't have this app, but TikTok's fucking fun.
Everyone loves TikTok. You're not the only one.
It's addicting. I get a lot of plant tips, a lot of cooking tips, a lot of anxiety tips. I like that app.
Well, and to be fair, the reason why TikTok might be going away isn't because the app is bad. Like the content of the app is bad.
Right.
There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of funny stuff on there. Stuff
behind the scenes.
Exactly. It's the actual company that owns TikTok, which is a Chinese company called ByteDance. Now, what's interesting is that as TikTok has, been out there and people have been downloading it, there's been a lot of research being done by American hackers and other types of cybersecurity people that are looking into this app's framework and basically reverse engineering the app to take a look at sort of the behind the scenes of what's happening, once you install the app on your phone and you give it all these permissions in order to use your camera, your microphone, to access the hard drive of your phone. And what people have found who have reverse engineered this app is that it is collecting far more data than any other social media app that they have reverse engineered, which is a little bit scary, because it's already a little bit, weird to think about how much Facebook knows about you, or some of the, like Instagram, some of the other social media apps. And we're all kind of just okay with it because we all use it. Right. So it's like,
kind of like what you give them in order to use their free apps.
Yeah. And it's like, what's the big deal? It's just like, everybody's using it. What could possibly be, so bad about these apps? Well, the difference with TikTok is the fact that we don't know what's being done with the data that TikTok is collecting. And we do know for certain that it is a piece of spyware, meaning that it is collecting information at all times, all around you, using your phone's functionalities in order to do so. And then it's sending that data off to somewhere unknown. And from what people who have researched this have said is that it's going back to the Chinese government. And this has been even vocalized in politics. Like most recently, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said U.S. authorities are considering a ban on TikTok because he said, quote, with respect to Chinese apps on people's cell phones, I can assure you the United States will get this one right too. I don't want to get out in front of the president, but it's something we're going to look at. And he also went on to say that if you should download the app, if you want your private information to be in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, this is how it's being done. Now, on the flip side, TikTok is saying that the app that we're all downloading is run by an American CEO and that it's all contained within the US and that they're denying that it is being used as, a way to spy on Americans and all of that. But at the end of the day, who are you going to listen to? The Chinese owned app, company heads, or are you going to listen to our intelligence services who are literally telling us to delete this off your phones because it is spyware? So that's really where you have to make a decision.
Who can you trust? They're all corrupt.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't care that you're being, your data could potentially be in the hands of, the Chinese government, then I guess you really have nothing to worry about. So I don't know.
I'm going to still be on the app until they delete that shit off my phone.
And as most people will do. I mean, a lot of people have literally built careers off of TikTok.
Yeah. And that is one thing I wanted to say is I do feel bad for people that have, not the dancers and stuff, whatever. I'm sure they'll bounce back. I'm sure they'll come away from this okay. But I'm talking about my friend Sarah Turney. A lot of you guys know her from the Alyssa Turney case. She's Alyssa Turney's sister, and she's been gaining a ton of traction on TikTok. Like, wow, her Voices for Justice podcast really boomed in the charts because of TikTok. She's gotten tons of hits, tons of awareness. I've been tagged a bunch of times to cover the case, even though I already have, but tons of new users on TikTok. I mean, it's kind of sucks in that way because a lot of people are building really strong audiences and putting a lot of time in. And as a creator, that sucks. So I get it. Like if YouTube was being deleted or possibly banned, I'd be freaking out right now. That does suck.
Yeah. So I guess we'll have to see. I mean, they're saying there's a potential that it could come from the top. Like the president himself could, I guess, issue an executive order to ban U.S. citizens from using TikTok.
Dude,
I believe
Gen Z is going to come for his ass.
Yeah. If this year hasn't been bad enough already, to go and ban people from using a social media platform is probably not going to go over well with people.
There are millions and millions and millions of users on TikTok.
Yeah. So it's like at the end of the day, it's just really hard to say. I mean, I guess if you are aware of the, potential things that could happen, then and you're still okay with it, I guess keep using the app. But if you are concerned about your privacy and data, then probably should delete that off your phone.
Well, word to the wise, still not going to do it.
Kendall says, follow me on TikTok.
I love TikTok. What am I going to do when I'm like anxious and need a distraction?
Go to Byte. That's the new alternative.
Byte. I've been on Byte. It sucks.
Well, it's because nobody's on Byte yet, but that's the app being put. It's made by the creators of Vine, I believe.
Shit.
So Byte could be the new TikTok. So get on that shit before.
I'll believe it when
does.
I see it. I got on there. It's pretty lame.
Yeah, but you were a total hater of TikTok for a long time.
I was. Well, back when it was singing and dancing only. Now it's funny and useful.
Oh my gosh. You're like, I learned things from TikTok. TikTok is educational.
It is, okay? And it helps spread awareness about true crime cases too. So hate all you want. Okay, it's probably a bad app. And I agree we should have an alternative. I'm just saying there's not one right now and that sucks. And so in the meantime, I'm going to use TikTok.
All right. Well, we got our answer here. I deleted it off my phone. So if you guys want to know, I deleted off my
Josh. Well, too
Kendall
bad because I guess
it
collects my closest friends' data too. So you're fucked.
Well, I'm going to keep your phone away from me and away from our bedroom and everywhere else.
I don't think they mean physical location. I think they mean who they talk to the most.
Right. Pull it through the phone.
That's true. I guess it's that. Well, whatever. If they can pull our texts, whatever. I don't care.
As long as our phones aren't close together, they won't steal our info.
My God.
Anyways.
All right. Well, let's talk about this bitch.
Yes. Let's talk about Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell, if you know anything about her or have heard of her, she is obviously closely associated with the now deceased Jeffrey Epstein. She is a British woman who was basically Jeffrey Epstein's right-hand woman. She was his girlfriend at one point in time. They were definitely, having a relationship at some points, but basically, she was arrested this past week on July 2nd, 2020. She was arrested by the FBI in Bradford, New Hampshire, and she was charged with 6 federal crimes, including enticement of minors, sex trafficking, and perjury. And if convicted, she could face up to 35 years in prison. So these are very, very serious crimes because, as we all know, Jeffrey Epstein was involved in some really sick shit and really, heinous crimes.
We should do a podcast on him soon because a ton of information has come out recently.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff coming out all the time with him. So yeah, she basically went out, scouted out, women that were potentials to be a part of their sex trafficking ring.
She's kind of like Allison Mack, who we'll be talking about more today.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely that type of role.
Oftentimes in human trafficking, women are used because they come across as more trustworthy and safe. Like it's just easier for them to lure other women or even children. If it's a woman doing it, oftentimes you'll hear stories. I know we've talked a lot about just this happening at Walmarts and big box stores. And it's normally women that go up to other women and try to traffic them with some type of Bible group or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and like with this case, what she would do, because she's this British woman, she's got some, when you meet her or listen to her talk, I mean, she has TED Talks out there. That's what's crazy is she has a lot of public presence out there. And so the way that she kind of carries herself is very I guess classy is the right word, smart. I mean, she is smart. If you look at her background, she has multiple degrees from Oxford University. So she's kind of the perfect person to put out there to attract women in. And essentially she'd go up to them and find women that wouldn't be missed, I guess is the best way that you could say it, and offer them a really lucrative job. But what she would do is she would go up to women who, oftentimes we're in poverty or in bad situations and say, hey, I got this really great job opportunity for you if you come with me. And, when you're a woman and you meet somebody like her, you're like, okay, you're not thinking about where that's going to lead.
What she could possibly want from you.
Right. Or be involved in or, all of that. So that's exactly what she would do. So right now, Ghislaine is actually in jail waiting to see if she's going to be granted bail or not. And honestly, I don't see them giving her this opportunity, or if they do, it's going to be some ridiculous amount that even she can't pay.
Because if not, someone's going to go just kill her if she gets out on bail.
Yeah, huge flight risk too. And they don't want her to get away. I mean, if the FBI is coming after you, they're definitely not going to let you just have an opportunity to get out. So this her bail hearing takes place on Tuesday, July 14th. So we'll know more then. But as of right now, there's a lot of things that are sort of coming out after she's been arrested that she has a lot of information. I believe she has recorded, I don't know if it's audio or video or whatever it is, some type of recordings that could put a lot of really big names in hot water. So,
well, hopefully she doesn't, end up killing herself in jail too.
She's on suicide watch right now.
Rotations.
Jeffrey Epstein was on suicide watch, and look what happened to him. So that doesn't mean anything. Hopefully, if what happened with Jeffrey Epstein was what they're reporting that this was a suicide. Hopefully, they take this more seriously. Obviously, I don't believe that it was suicide. This was a hit of some sort. So hopefully, at the end of the day, I think the entire world wants to know what's really going on with this, because Jeffrey Epstein is obviously high up in whatever his ring was. I mean, who knows who else is out there that's involved in this, but obviously we know that Bill Clinton's involved, Prince Andrew, Leslie Wexner. There's a long list of people. Then obviously all the people that speculate about the flight logs and all the people on those, how much are they involved in this, or were they just simply on a flight with him? These are all questions that we have. And if anybody's got the answers to these questions, it's got to be her.
She seemed to be like his sidekick, kind of.
She was. She would know probably the inner workings of the entire operation and what Jeffrey Epstein was up to.
So did you see the picture that went viral this week? I was tagged in it so many times, of JonBenet Ramsey, where it looks like she's in it.
Yeah.
I mean, very unlikely that it's her, right? But still weird. It really the
weird.
picture did look like her.
It was like a side view of her face. But
yeah, but it's probably just some other random woman. That's a pretty popular hairstyle, especially for back then. So I don't know.
It's weird. It's definitely really, really weird.
It is.
So with that being said, let's move into the conspiracy that's taking the internet by storm today when we're recording this Friday. And that is the Wayfair conspiracy. This is just, I mean, when I started looking into it, I was just like, what in the world is going on? This is just absolutely insane.
And again, more stuff will probably like come out, or there'll be like more information going around by the time this episode goes up. This is the first day that this has like really graced the internet. So we don't know that much about it or really what to think.
Right. So if you haven't heard of this Wayfair conspiracy yet, essentially what it is that there was a post, I believe, that started on Reddit, and then it made its way to Twitter. But essentially somebody figured out that Wayfair had a bunch of storage cabinets that were really, really expensive. So they're $14,000, $13,000, $12,000 at least for what looks like a pretty standard storage cabinet.
Well, not only that, also these pillows, these like Zodiac pillows. There's been a lot of pictures of those going around as well. So it's the cabinets and the pillows.
And there's like a rug.
Oh, there is.
It's like a lot of items. I mean, a lot of...
But the main thing is the cabinets.
Right. Well, people are looking at these items and they're like, why are these items so expensive, for one? But two, the names associated with the items. So Wayfair has been, if you've ever shopped on Wayfair, you know that their naming schemes for things are a little weird. Like they use human names for all of their different products and collections and
stuff.
stuff.
I honestly feel like that's pretty standard.
Yeah.
Like most furniture, like IKEA does that.
Even clothing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Like bras.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Even makeup.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, and nobody really thought anything of this until like now, it seems like.
Well, because of the prices.
Right. Well, they're looking at the prices for these things and they're saying, okay, well, if we look at the names and we, search the names, we find missing people with the following names of these storage cabinets.
Which is really weird because some of the cabinets are the exact same and they have different names. Like there's one that's Yartiza and one that's Samia.
Yeah. And the pictures, according to the pictures, they're exactly the same yet.
Yeah, they're the same.
The prices
cabinet.
are different.
And there's, they're different names as well.
And they're by WFX Utility, which...
So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is very weird. Like it doesn't make any sense at all. So somebody along the way connected missing people with these exact names spelled. Again, these are just first names of these missing people. And they essentially made the allegation that Wayfair is somehow either, involved with a sex trafficking ring or is just, fooling all of us by being a furniture company and, as a front, and behind the scenes, they're somehow selling humans through their website, which
even if that's what they're doing, like if this is true, why would they put this on their website, on their furniture website?
Yeah.
There's other places. There are places that exist on the internet for people to buy that kind of thing. It's not on Wayfair. It's just kind of weird. And then another thing that's, just questionable in this whole case is one of the names, Samia, has been all over. That's probably the one that's reposted the most. And there was a missing girl named Samia. But she just did an Instagram or a Facebook Live and you have that, right? Can we play it?
Yeah.
Of her being like, this is bullshit. I'm not even missing anymore.
Right. Well, people are just going to missingkids.org and typing in the name.
Yeah, and there's a missing kid for every name.
You could look up any name.
There's so many missing people.
Exactly. So
wait, can you play that?
Who are you? How are you going to post about me being missing? You don't even know me. And then your caption sounds retarded. Would this be true? Would this be something if this was true? Why are you posting people talking about they're missing if you don't even know if they missing with a cabinet?
I don't know.
So
I mean, this is weird.
It's very weird. And Wayfair had to respond to this because this has been getting a lot of traction online. And they said, there is, of course, no truth to these claims. The products in question are industrial grade cabinets that are accurately priced, recognizing that the photos and descriptions provided by the supplier did not adequately explain the high price point. We have temporarily removed the products from the site to rename them and provide a more in-depth description and photos that accurately depict the product to clarify the price point.
Which also, though, I'm like, what the hell kind of file cabinet's being sold for $13,000?
Yeah, that is kind of weird. Those are really expensive.
To be fair, a lot of people, you know, these pillows and things like that, obviously
the
some
pillows,
of it
there was a pillow, literally a throw pillow for $10,000.
which I understand, and again, there has been a history of Wayfair having fuck ups with their pricing on their website.
And that's what they said it was,
because
the price
they
glitch
do,
on those ones.
Wayfair is kind of like a marketplace in a way, because they do have all these other little brands. Whether or not they're associated with Wayfair, I don't know. I think they own a lot of the brands that post on there, but you know how every piece of furniture says buy blah, blah, blah. Yeah. They own a bunch of smaller companies that make furniture. So I think the back end of their systems is probably pretty complex, and there's probably room for error there, because there's so much furniture sold through this website.
So are these cabinets actually this expensive, or are these price glitched as well?
No, they are this expensive. That's how much industrial grade. These are made out of probably stainless steel or titanium or some
paying
really
that much for cabinets still?
Yeah, and that's what's weirding everybody out, is like, why do you have these, you know, seemingly simple products at price so high?
Especially for a place like Wayfair, which is usually known as like a place that gives you really affordable deals and stuff like that. It's not like it's a luxury furniture, office decor, you know, website. It's pretty
But I think they're
affordable.
trying to span the whole from cheap to expensive, because like the pillow thing, somebody was like, look at this $9,000 pillow. Who would pay $9,000 for it? Well, when I actually looked at it, it had this specific type of duck feather in it. And when I Googled this type of pillow on another website, it was for $9,000 to $15,000 for a down pillow.
From
rich
Wayfair,
people.
though,
Some people are dumb. I don't care how much money you have. You don't need to spend that much on a pillow. That's just so wasteful and stupid. But anyway,
People gotta have money to spend on that stuff, and people do spend that much on it.
there was a pillow, a Zodiac pillow, that is not supposed to be $10,000. It was price glitched. It's supposed to be like 34 or something. And what's weird about it is on the Cancer Zodiac pillow, it says one name. What did we just see it? I can't remember what the name was.
idea.
And then on the Libra Zodiac pillow was a different name.
But I feel like that's
two
pretty
different
normal,
names.
because it's two different signs. So each pillow.
But why wouldn't they call it the Cancer pillow? It was like some random person's name.
Because they always have like names. I
don't know if that was glitches or
No,
like.
we've experienced, so we have bought some things from Wayfair, and even in the past with like, remember when we bought the kitchen table, how it was like different collections, different names. Like that's just how their whole.
No, I know,
I
but the
hate
same
Wayfair
pillow.
because
It was
of
the
this.
same collection, same pillow, just different names.
Yeah, they do that all the time. I
But
could
for
show
a
you
Zodiac
10
pillow?
examples. Yes, I could
I
show
don't
you
know,
10
guys.
examples of
Look
that.
at it for yourself and let me know if you think it's kind of weird. Because I don't know. I'm not saying it means anything.
No,
I'm
it
just
is
saying
weird.
I
It's
think it's a
absolutely
mistake or
weird.
something.
Yeah.
Because why would they name their pillows like this?
Yeah, Wayfair just fucking has no clue what they're doing
don't
when
know
it comes to
what.
organizing
Wayfair
shit.
sucks, and they
It
also
does.
supply materials to ICE.
The detention centers, yeah.
So you
Which is
shouldn't be
fucked up,
supporting them
too.
anyway.
Yeah, bottom line is fuck Wayfair. Don't support them.
It'll be interesting to see if any more comes out of this, or if they can explain this a little better, because I still feel like there's a lot of confusion right now.
Yeah, but again, I just want to be very, very clear that when we're talking about especially a subject as serious as human trafficking and child sex trafficking, please be super conscious about what you are sharing with other people, because this is serious stuff, and there's people that are actually involved in this and actually wrapped up in this that are victims, and it can be more harmful from what we've talked to with Thorne about and things like that. Sharing information like this can be even worse. You think you're spreading awareness by spreading,
We're trying to solve something.
Look at Wayfair, tag the FBI. People that do that are not making the situation better.
No.
There's avenues to go about to do this properly so that it can actually be investigated. If there's adequate evidence, people have completely thrown out the window that you have to have solid concrete evidence.
Seriously.
Coincidences
It's
are
getting bad.
not solid concrete evidence that can actually be pursued. Like, yeah, we can sit around and be like, this is weird, that's weird. And we can contemplate, possible ideas and theories, but we have to make sure that when you're talking about these things, even on Twitter and online, that you actually specify that, hey, this is just my opinion. This is just an idea that there's too many people out there that are fucking pushing stuff on the internet as fact. And, I have proof because look at this picture.
Or they have like some screenshot from Facebook or
some other
Snapchat.
unknown source.
It's just like, what? Remember, you need to have sources, you need to have evidence, you need to have proof, or else your theories are just thoughts.
Yeah.
That's all they are.
Yeah. And it can be extremely damaging to
It can.
the actual
That's a good point.
things that are happening and the investigations that are happening. Because for all we know, there could already be an investigation into Wayfair for something serious like this. And by people just blowing this up all over the internet, with, accusing this and that and this person of this and that, you're just making this way worse.
And you could be bringing, obviously now I think there's more attention that Wayfair is like, oh, we're getting some, heat for this. We got to fix our shit. If let's say there was something going on, if there was an investigation, now you're ruining it for the people who are investigating and trying to build a case.
Yeah, that's true. And when it gets all messed up with rumors, like there's always some truth in these theories and a lot of bullshit, mixed in to kind of all be pushed as one truth.
And on that point of bullshit, the other little bit of this that I saw that people were doing that makes absolutely no sense is apparently some people figured out that if you put SRC USA into a Russian search engine, okay, for one, it's a Russian search engine, Yandex.com, and you put SRC USA into there, and then you take a Wayfair SKU, like one of their SKU numbers, and put that in there, that the search results you get is children. And it is. That's what happens when you put it in. I tried it myself.
But no matter what you put in there, you're going to get children.
Well, an SRC is an actual Russian modeling agency. If you actually go back and look at it, SRC is obviously going to be the first thing that the search engine looks at, and it's going to automatically refer to a modeling agencies and associated things to that. So just by tacking on the, Wayfair SKU on the end of it doesn't mean anything. I mean, and people are using that as evidence that, look at this. This is evidence that this SKU for this pillow is actually a human, and that if you ordered this, the human would show up at your door. It's like that. No, I'm dead serious. That's what people are saying.
I know. No, I know. Some people think they're actually shipping the kids in the cabinet. Like some people don't even understand that it's the cabinet.
Okay.
I know.
It's so, and I'm just like, people fucking crap. Think about this for a second. This makes no sense. And plus, fucking Yandex is a Russian search engine. For all we know, there could be a bunch of fucking, Russian people that are doing this on purpose to try to make us believe this theory. I mean,
which does happen.
There is counterintelligence out there that is literally trying to fool us online. And there's so many people that are falling for all the fucking bullshit that's literally being made by, enemies of our country, I guess you could say. Like, it's,
and I know it is
crazy.
Hard nowadays because there is so much information. It's hard to figure out what to believe and what not to believe, but you gotta, at the end of the day, when you're questioning something, you gotta go back to, like I said, the source, the evidence, the proof. And if you don't have those things, then
you should not be sharing it as like, this is what's actually going on.
And the confidence some people speak with about these things when they really don't know shit and they're just at home on Twitter is just ridiculous.
Right. And I'm sorry, a government insider will never be a 100% reliable source. I just want to put that out there. That
any type of insider.
No.
You have to question them to some extent.
Anybody that's remaining anonymous, that's providing you all of your information, cannot be a trusted source.
Be skeptical of everything or you will fall for
Question everything, including things that are, going with your, what you're thinking. Like there's tons of things that we get bombarded with that like, oh, that fits into my narrative of what I believe about the world and, the government and everything. Like, you gotta, I know it's hard to navigate and it's hard to sift through all the shit that you get thrown at you online, but you've got to take each little bit and really process it, really look into it, try to see if you can verify it. That's the best thing you do is look at other places. Who else is saying this? And you'll find that most of the times it's coming from one little fucking random place on the internet that just started it because they're looking for,
or they have a different agenda completely.
Right. Or they have a different narrative that they're trying to push.
And obviously we do believe in conspiracies. We believe in a lot of conspiracies, but we just think it's really important to actually, have evidence to back this stuff up or you'll look stupid. You want to be taken seriously. Human trafficking is a big problem. A lot of this stuff is true. That does go around. And it's important to separate that from things that can't be proven, or else we just all get looped into a bunch of crazies that,
and I mean,
aren't reliable.
At the end of the day, we're all in this to try to find the truth. I mean, I think everybody coming at this has sort of the same, goal here. We all want to know about the truth about what's really happening in the world, what's really happening to these poor beings, human beings that are being sex trafficked and disappearing.
And we know that it exists.
And we know, yes, we 100% know it exists. It's a real thing. Jeffrey Epstein, real thing. Sex trafficker. We've got Keith Raniere, who we're talking about. Sex trafficker. We know there's people out there doing this, but before you go and start, trying to point fingers at everybody
and solve it yourself.
We have to take a look at things under a microscope and really, because you can destroy people's lives. You can accuse people of horrific things with absolutely no evidence that it could be completely wrong. And
just
that could derail them.
Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So again, I'll get off my soapbox, but I've felt really passionate about this because I feel like a lot of you out there are, sitting around wondering what Kendall and I think about so many things that happen, on the internet and a lot of these, leaks and whatnot. And I just wanted to give you our perspective on it and why we don't just jump on the train and start, sharing this, retweeting that.
And that's something that we wanted to do from the beginning, is make sure that our show has evidence to back up what we talk about, that we don't push ideas on people and we don't push narratives that cannot be verified.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's all we can do at the end of the day. And like, everybody's entitled to their opinion and what they believe. And that's totally up to you. And we believe that. So, you don't have to take what we say as fact or, our opinion as what goes, but be open to everything, question everything, but also it's healthy to have a little bit of skepticism in there too.
Absolutely.
But with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into Keith Raniere. But before we do, we'd like to thank our first sponsors for today.
You guys, if you have not checked out HelloFresh, you are missing out. With HelloFresh, you can get fresh, pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit, and they let you skip those trips to the grocery store, and they make cooking a meal at home fun, easy, and affordable. HelloFresh offers so many recipes to choose from each week so that you can break out of your recipe rut, and they now offer contactless delivery right to your doorstep. And what we love about HelloFresh is their packaging is almost made of entirely recyclable and already recycled content. We recently made the creamy Parmesan chicken spaghetti, and it was delicious. It was super easy, only took us about 30 minutes to make, and Josh and I both loved it. So go to HelloFresh.com/80milehigher and use the code 80milehigher to get $80 off. And that includes free shipping on your first box. Additional restrictions apply. Please visit HelloFresh.com for more details. Again, that is HelloFresh.com/80milehigher and use the code 80milehigher to get $80 off.
Have you ever watched The Office? If you have, you probably know it's based on a UK series also called The Office. But what if I told you there are 9 other countries with their own versions of The Office that you've never seen? Well, you probably didn't know about them because they're not usually available in your country. But you can access content available all around the world with no geo restrictions when you use ExpressVPN. See, ExpressVPN lets you control where you want sites to think you're located. You can choose from nearly 100 different countries, giving you access to content that isn't available in your region. For less than $7 a month, ExpressVPN lets you access thousands of new shows and movies on Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and tons of other streaming services. And it couldn't be easier to use. Just fire up the ExpressVPN app on your computer or your TV, select a location, and hit connect. So get the most out of your streaming services today at expressvpn.com/milehigher. If you use our link, you'll get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Again, that's expressvpn.com/milehigher. expressvpn.com/milehigher to learn more.
All right. So let's get into talking about NXIVM and a little man that I like to call Creepy Keith, or Keith Raniere. He's a real weird one.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any, there's that many stories out there as crazy as NXIVM. Mm-hmm. And it's secret sex cult known as DOS or DOS. And it's crazy that this thing branded itself as a self-help group.
Yeah.
And basically an MLM.
It kind of marketed to people like you will become like a Gandhi or a
enlightened individual.
Yeah, like an Einstein. You'll be like a genius and be able to really impact the world, and that you're kind of stuck in worldly bullshit, and that they can help kind of clear that for you and change your life. And yeah, it is a MLM, multi-level marketing company.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
I think the biggest thing with NXIVM is the fact that Keith is the one that holds all the answers. all of the keys to becoming, this most evolved version of yourself. It sounds a lot like Scientology. And I mean, we'll draw a lot of different similarities there as far as like L. Ron Hubbard. And obviously it's very different at the same time. But, this idea that I am this person who is beyond anything that you guys are. But if you follow me, I will give you the tools and the knowledge in order to become this genius that I am, this spiritually enlightened being. And that's exactly what Keith Raniere's followers said about him, is that he's one of the most ethical people alive, which I'm like blown away by that because as you'll see, that's clearly not him at all. But that he was inspirational and he had all these teachings, and, he took a lot of already successful people and would take them to the next level, to this place that they had never been, and just become superhumans in a lot of way and elevate everything. But not only that, he makes a lot of claims about how he can even heal medical issues as well, like diabetes and scoliosis, and there's a couple others. But let's go ahead and talk about Keith Raniere a little bit more. We have to go back to the very beginning because his whole life story is just interesting and wild at the same time. So Keith Raniere was born in New York on August 26, 1960, and his father, James, was in advertising, and his mother, Vera, was a ballroom dancing instructor who may have been an alcoholic. His parents separated when he was 8 years old, and when he was 10, Keith got his first taste of blackmail. A girl in his class told him a secret about her sister, and he threatened to tell her family. He said, quote, it's like I have this little bottle of poison I can hold over your head. I just don't think your parents or your sister would be very happy if I told them. That was at a very, very young age that he was saying things like this already.
He's like a young Jeffree Star.
Well, he made harassing phone calls to her house, repeating little bottles over and over.
That's so creepy.
So he was a fuck from the very beginning. Like, he was already doing this. Keith claims he spoke in full sentences when he was 1 year old. What do you think about that? Is that even possible?
I don't know, because I've heard a couple people claim that. I mean, I'm not a child development expert. It sounds like a stretch to me, but there's like other people who claim they started walking and talking and doing things at really young ages. So I don't know.
And keyword claim here.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a fucking liar, so it's probably not true.
Right. He also said he taught himself high school math in 19 hours when he was 12.
Okay. Yeah. That's
what does that even
a
mean?
lie.
High school. Define high school math.
Just like all of it. Trigonometry, calc, everything.
That's crazy. I mean, that's definitely a stretch. And then he said by 13, he had learned 3 years of college math and several computer languages. Also at the age of 12 years old, Keith Raniere claimed that the seed of his future career was planted by The Second Foundation, which is a novel by acclaimed sci-fi writer Isaac Asimov about mind control. What do you know? Mind control. He's already filling his head with that. He was also an admirer of Ayn Rand and her philosophy of objectivism, which is a concept deeply rooted in capitalism and self-interest. And as a young teenager, encouraged by his parents, Keith displayed traits of severe narcissism, surprise. He also believed he was a genius who was superior to everyone he knew. And the flames of his ego were further fanned by a seemingly endless line of young girls. He professed his love to all of them, and in turn, they showered him with attention and affection. So from the very beginning, he was already figuring out how to mind control and manipulate women into doing whatever he wanted, it seems like. After graduating from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in Troy, New York in 1982, with majors in physics, math, and biology, he went to work in computer programming and consulting. And even before that, though, he was a salesman, I think, for like 2 years, which obviously he's a great salesman because he's able to mind control everybody.
He's like such a charmer.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is I've seen some things that like he claims he like triple majored in college or whatever, and that's not even true. Like there's no way to verify that. Like just like with L. Ron Hubbard, right?
Yeah,
he claimed he did all of this shit too, and that didn't turn out to be true. I wonder, it's interesting because like throughout the research that I saw, I didn't really see like if he ever made a connection with L. Ron Hubbard or Scientology at all, or was inspired at all by.
He probably wouldn't want to be open about that connection because a lot of people accuse him of like stealing from Scientology, like repackaging all their ideas. So obviously you wouldn't want to be like
right. Yeah, he's trying to create his own thing. So why would he lend any credit to that? Keith was even featured in the 1989 edition of the Guinness Book of World Records for his high IQ, and the determining factor was a score on the mega test, and has been widely discredited, of course. But he took that opportunity to start promoting himself as literally the smartest man in the world. And that's what he would tell people, is that he had scored so high on the IQ test, he's this genius, and I guess people believed him. And in his mid-20s, he carried on sexual relationships with multiple 15-year-old girls. One of these girls is speculated to have been his first sex slave, and she later died under suspicious circumstances, and her death was ruled a suicide.
At 15?
Yep.
I mean, possible.
By his 20s, he was already
a
pedophile. Because his ego is just so fucking jacked up, and he's in this mind state of, I am a god, I'm a genius, I'm untouchable, I'm smarter than everybody, and I can do whatever I want. I mean, that's really I think the kind of spirit he carried with him is nobody can touch me, nobody can control me. But most importantly, Keith spent most of his career studying the complexities of multi-level marketing and how to attain success in MLMs. After working for Amway, which was where he was a salesman, he founded 2 of his own companies. The first was called Consumers Buyline Incorporated, or CBI.
And Consumers Buyline was like a group purchasing thing. So they would get discounts on like appliances or whatever else, and the whole group would get the discount. And you like have to join the group and pay a certain amount to be part of it. And so this was an MLM. An MLM is a multi-level marketing company, I believe. And it's essentially, they don't like to call themselves pyramid schemes, but it's a pyramid scheme. The people at the top make the most. They recruit people underneath them to do sales, and they get a percentage of their sales. And the people at the bottom make little to nothing. And they're kind of just worker bees for the people at the top of the pyramid. So a lot of these are illegal. A lot of them end up getting busted. This one did as well.
Yeah, it did.
For being an actual pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
A lot of MLMs like to say that they're not a pyramid scheme, and there's like ways they get around.
Well, I think if they figure out ways that they can offer something to on the ground level, then that kind of keeps them away from being classified as that. So they'll figure out ways like whether it's product or whatever it may be to get you started, or a bonus.
Normally you
something.
pay for that stuff though to get started, and you have to pay a monthly fee just to be part of it. Most people lose money on MLMs.
So why are they all not? Why are any of them legal then?
Well, that's what a lot of people are critical of. Is maybe they shouldn't be.
Well, it could be like, okay, so you buy our starter pack, which is $200, and then if you can sell $300, then we'll give you $100 bonus right away. But you have to sell this amount of product in X amount of time.
Yeah, and you have to be constantly like pimping it out on your Instagram, your social media, annoying all your friends, contacting everyone in your contact list. I mean, it's not a fun thing. But anyway.
So just for, so it makes sense to people that don't understand what a pyramid scheme is. So a pyramid scheme is
a scheme in the shape of a pyramid. Where the people at the top make the most and the people at the bottom make the least. That is what it is.
Isn't the world basically a giant pyramid
scheme? Yeah, the world is pretty much a giant pyramid scheme. And I always bring it up, but go back to Egypt and look at their caste system, their pyramid, and people at the top are the biggest section of it. It's like a classic model.
Yeah, and the New World Order conspiracy or Illuminati conspiracy. It's why Eye of Providence, the triangle. The elites are at the top, we're at the bottom. That's why we flip ours upside down. As the people are at the top, the elites are at the bottom.
Boom.
There you go. Anyway, so Keith's first MLM gets busted by the New York Attorney General's office. They file charges against CBI claiming it's an illegal pyramid scheme because I think they're often investigated, and if they and a lot of times in these pyramid schemes there's illegal shit happening. There's stealing of money and profits, and it's not being fairly distributed like it should be. And there's even some countries where pyramid schemes or MLMs are completely illegal altogether. But here in the US, I guess you can have an MLM as long as it's fair, or there's some type of
it's all very
debatable.
questionable.
It's debatable. Yeah. So Keith Raniere's company is investigated by 19 additional states, and it was shut down in the early 1990s. And from that point on, he was prohibited from participating in MLMs and was ordered to pay a $40,000 fine. But just a year later, after all of this, Keith re-enters the MLM game by founding National Health Network, which was another pyramid scheme that got closed down in 1999. And it's so interesting that that's like his business practice of choice was the pyramid scheme. He always wanted to be at the top. He wanted to have the control. And that's why he kept choosing these types of structures.
I think that's what life was about for Keith. I don't think it was about money. I think it was about controlling people, being the boss, having people underneath you, people looking up to you. I mean, he's a narcissistic,
that's
crazy person.
What narcissists want is they want that type of attention. So in the midst of closing down National Health Network, Keith collaborated with Nancy Salzman, who's a nurse who practiced neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotism. And in 1998, the pair of them created the Executive Success Programs, which essentially was laying the foundation for NXIVM. So the Executive Success Programs were marketed as personal development seminars that could help participants find enlightenment and success. Raniere didn't just promise to unlock clients' greater potential, he claimed that his methods could abate symptoms of Tourette syndrome and even help kids speak up to 13 languages.
Ridiculous.
He made claims like this, like and medical claims. That's definitely the craziest thing. Like, what's special about your thing here? He essentially is like a guru. He believes he's got, not only is he a genius, but he also, through his methods and his courses, has developed a way for you to heal yourselves of these medical ailments, which
become like a higher being.
Yeah, exactly. According to the pair, these executive success programs were promoted as some kind of technology that was rooted in rational thought. And this type of rhetoric helped legitimize NXIVM's teachings. Now, Nancy Salzman exploited her medical background while Raniere continued his claims that he was the smartest man in the world to tout executive success programs as a miracle cure for all of life's problems. Which you got to be careful of anybody that's, claiming
to sell
they
you the
can,
world like that.
Yes, I can make your entire world better. I mean, who doesn't want to experience especially if you're in a bad spot in life and, you want to experience a better state of reality, I can see how this would be enticing to want to, why not try it out? What's the worst that could happen?
These types of groups do help people often, like actual self-help groups and support groups and, classes. And there's plenty of stuff like this out there that they kind of disguise themselves as another one of those.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a good front for criminal activity because, to the world, you're projecting that, we're the self-help, make yourself a better person company.
Transforming lives.
Transforming lives. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, we're destroying lives. And that's often how it goes with these companies.
Scientology too.
Exactly.
And what's his face at the People's Temple?
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones.
Yeah.
Very similar. Yeah.
All these types of people are like the same strain of human, Like even Chad Daybell falls into the category with these fucks. Like they're just so controlling and they have this evil streak in them. But then they're all most of them are kind of smart.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's very odd personality.
Well, I think, with power and, you realize that you are, intelligently higher than another person, you could take that one of two ways. You could either use that to help the other people and bring them up to your level, or you could use it against them and, call it an evil streak or call it just human nature. Like we're all faced with these decisions on a daily basis where you can take the high road or you can take the low road. And so Keith, he just decided to take the low road in order to maintain control and continue growing his power. Because if you give that up, you're always, and always take the high road, you're never going to rise up in that power structure, that pyramid structure. You're never going to rise to the top. You have to be like that to get to the top of the pyramid. So when Keith and Nancy discovered that these executive success programs were a success, that's when things really took off for them. And that's really when NXIVM got started. What's interesting though about NXIVM is that the people that were considered followers of Keith and of Nancy would have to refer to them by a specific name. So for Keith, it was actually Vanguard. And he actually took that name from an arcade game in which the game, a player increases their power by destroying their enemies. And as his first disciple, Nancy Salzman was called Prefect. So just like we were talking about earlier, the way that he promoted NXIVM to tenants was that it was this profound philosophical movement, and it was led by a class system. And members of varying ranks wore different colored sashes to differentiate their levels of authority. And the mission was based on eliminating all envy-based habits while ethically gaining control over the world's resources and wealth. And during classes, workshops, and seminars, members were indoctrinated. They learned the mission and the philosophies of NXIVM and praised its leaders. And they pay thousands and thousands of dollars to attend these classes. And some of these programs lasted for 16 days straight, with 12-hour classes held each day. This reminds me a lot of Scientology. Got to pay a lot of money for these courses and trainings and tests and whatnot. And they're long and grueling, day after day, long days. But membership in NXIVM was exclusive and by invitation only. Before joining, prospective members were required to fill out a lengthy questionnaires. These intake forms asked probing questions about family relationships, religious beliefs, personal insecurities, wealth, and assets. I wonder why they're asking about insecurities and family relationships.
Blackmail.
Yep. Trying to gather any sort of blackmail on these possible members.
Which I think they do in Scientology as well. And that's why a lot of them are not able to leave.
Yeah.
Because you end up, in their auditing sessions in Scientology, you end up telling them tons of
your
stuff
deepest,
about
darkest
you.
secrets. I mean, you're telling them.
Even if they, sometimes they would force people to make stuff up because they'd be like, there's more that you're not telling us. Come on, what do you got? What do you got? And then people would be pressured and they would just make something up.
Right.
And then that's held against them as blackmail.
Right.
Very scary. It's all so the cult can have power.
Yeah, exactly. So in NXIVM, the recruiters would use these questionnaires to pick out vulnerable people who could be more easily exploited and eliminate those who were too strong-willed or independent to be manipulated.
Exactly.
Like filtering them out. Yeah. They wanted the weak-minded that they could break down and then program the way that they wanted them to be. So classes and programs that were offered by NXIVM were based on false scientific claims and mostly useless self-help jargon, but they served their purpose in luring in the weak and vulnerable. And once enrolled, a subtle process of brainwashing and hypnosis began to unfold. Former participants have described what it is like to feel transformed by NXIVM's teachings. They explain how the lessons are designed to make you doubt everyone and everything, even your own thoughts, and to trust no one and nothing except for NXIVM and its leaders. That's like classic cult philosophy right there. Like, forget everything you've ever been told.
We're your world now.
Right. And remember, out there, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad for you.
And they don't want to see you succeed, and they don't want to see you happy.
Tell you all this stuff.
Lie to you about us. And
Here, though, we'll give you the answers to make your life better. So the NXIVM classes promoted a kind of emotional dependence through a vicious cycle of insults and praise. Participants would be torn down and berated, stripping them of all self-confidence. Then when they couldn't take it anymore, they'd be showered in compliments and praise. And the result was a deep-rooted craving for emotional high of accolades, which came only after sadistic emotional abuse. Which, again, all classic examples of cult philosophy. And once you were locked in the tight grip of the cult, people found themselves sinking deeper and deeper. And NXIVM promised participants an effective wealth-building system. If they continued to purchase classes and recruit others, they would be rewarded with a stable and generous income. Boom. But that never happened. The system was manipulated, and so very few people made any money at all. In fact, lots of people lost mass amounts of money, paying thousands of dollars for essentially nothing. And at that point, after going through the trainings and everything, they have all of this dirt on you that, and they've managed probably to brainwash you to some extent that it's extremely hard to pull out of that. I think so many people are like, why wouldn't you just leave? Like, why wouldn't you just, I'm out. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not that simple. It's like an abusive relationship, really.
Absolutely.
Like you can't leave. You're scared to leave. If you leave, terrible things are going to happen to you. Like, you better not leave.
Yeah. And I think you end up feeling like you can't. Like you have no other option, especially when these people have all this dirt on you. A lot of people were saying that they got them to like talk shit about their families. And they knew that, if they left, that all this could be leaked to their family, like all this terrible stuff they said.
Then they have no one.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have NXIVM. They wouldn't have their family.
Exactly. So they put people in that victim position where they literally can't leave. And I think that's hard for us to understand, especially when you're not brainwashed and maybe you haven't been in a relationship like that and you don't understand. I mean, it can be hard to think like, why wouldn't you just leave? If they're yelling at you, if they're berating you, if they're calling you names, why don't you just leave? And obviously some people do, but there's a lot of people that don't. And it's all these strategies that they have, like we just explained. They know how to rope people in and make them feel like they truly have no other choice.
Right. It really is like master manipulation.
It is.
Well, yeah. And when you have somebody like Keith, who is, the guy looks like, tried to make himself look like Jesus and act like Jesus. Like he's this, enlightened
Spiritual
individual.
leader.
And, he really has the answers and people believe that. Like you believe that about him. And if you don't know that it's all bullshit, then who are you to distrust somebody like that or lose faith in somebody like that?
Especially this is someone who has met with the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
Keith Raniere has pictures with him, Raniere, whatever. And you got to wonder, like, what did the Dalai Lama see in him? Did he see anything in him? Like, is he really as special as he claims to be? And I think a lot of people were like, wow, he really must be. And I think it is, a certain type of person that has that void in their heart that needs like fulfillment in some type of way, or they've been broken in the past, or they've been abused in the past, and they're just looking for anyone to kind of guide them. And if you're in that place where you're already looking for that, it's easier for someone to come in and fill that,
Yeah, at that point, it's like, what do you have to lose?
Right.
A lot of people, I think, feel like, well, my outside life isn't great for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
Some of the ones that you just mentioned. And therefore, what do I have to lose by joining this?
Right. And look at all the people that are in it. They all seem happy. They have little engagements and they say they've made a ton of friends and changed their life. And it's just like an MLM. People go and recruit other members by being like, it's so great. And that's what MLM people do is they're like, oh, my job is so great. I get to work from home. I get to take time off whenever I want. I get this, I get that, I get that. And they sell you this life, but they don't tell you all of the other details that come with being part of it, all the hardships and struggles.
Or even like behind the scenes of the higher ranks. You have to trust what they're saying is true.
Yeah.
And you are not allowed to know, what the upper echelons of this organization are up to, what they're doing, what their background is, what they're, all you get to know is what they're telling you.
Right.
And that alone is very dangerous. And to the point of like why it was so appealing for people to join, it was not only was it, we'll help you with your relationships, but also your careers. For example, a former member named Sally Brink, who was sent to NXIVM by a friend, signed up for a class that claimed it could help her grow and succeed as an entrepreneur. And at first, Sally Brink believed the lessons really did help. However, as she descended deeper into the trenches, the emotional abuse became more and more apparent. Because when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, NXIVM leaders accused her of purposely getting cancer as a ploy to get more attention from her husband, which is like, what? Why would anybody do that? Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. But when she raised money for her treatment online, the leaders tried to convince her that the moral choice was to die rather than waste the money to treat her illness. That's just like, fuck. Like, I don't even know. Like, that's just horrible that's emotional abuse right there. That's straight up what that is. And this type of emotional abuse was a common occurrence in NXIVM. Like, there's so many members that had this similar type of experience like this where, something happens, or at first they thought they were going to get help for something, and then it ends, for the worse. So over the years that NXIVM has been around, there's been countless personal stories and accounts that have emerged from these 16,000 people who have taken NXIVM classes, seminars, and workshops, and increasingly bizarre details continue to surface, and nothing seemed to be off limits to exploit. For example, the cult twisted the transcendent philosophical belief in reincarnation into something hateful, Leaders believed they were the reincarnations of notorious Nazis, including the infamous architect of the Holocaust, Reinhard Heydrich. And in reverence to their beloved leaders, members participate in a week-long celebration to honor Keith Raniere's birthday. The event is called Vanguard Week, or V-Week, after his chosen nickname. This is probably one of the most disturbing things that they did in NXIVM, and that was when so-called doctors performed fright studies on members, which were really illegal medical experiments on members of NXIVM.
And they sound really upsetting.
So basically what they would do is they would say, all right, we need you to, who wants to participate in a fright study? And people would be like, okay, like it can't be that bad. Like I'll do it. They want to show loyalty to the cult. They want to, move up higher in the ranks. So people would sign up for these fright studies that they would do. Now, what they would actually do is insane. They would take you, sit you down, and hook you up to an EEG machine, which monitors brain waves. And then they would force you to watch horrific scenes of violence and murder.
We watched an episode of Cults and Extreme Belief by A&E on this case. And one of the women who went through this talked about her experience with it. And she said she went in just thinking it was like a typical research experiment. Like maybe they would show her some pictures, but she didn't think it would be that bad. But she sits down and they start showing her a video of 4 women being decapitated by 4 men. And it's just, I could tell just by looking at.
Yeah, it was
they showed like
cartel.
The intro couple seconds and oh my gosh, I've seen videos like that in the past and it's so fucking horrific. I mean, that shit just stays with you. If you've seen anything horrific like that online, then you know what I mean. It just always stays in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, you can get PTSD from that. I mean, that could
I'm
really
sure
affect somebody to the point where, that plays over and over in their head. And, that's, yeah, I mean, if you've never seen anything like that, I mean, not that anybody's meant to see something as horrific as decapitation, but I can't even imagine,
Yeah, and being forced to sit down and watch it on TV while people are monitoring you. Like, what the hell? That's got to make it feel more scary. Mm-hmm. It's just so weird. I mean, and what's the point? Why? They just wanted to torture people. They just wanted to see people scared. Yeah. Keith Raniere was obsessed with that video. He had talked about that video several times. He had seen it from another friend within the group, and he went into this whole weird thing about how he was wondering what each person's perspective was, what it was like for each of the women to be killed, what it was like for the little boy who couldn't like fully do it. And he's just weird. He's obsessed with stuff like this. And it's just one example of his twisted, dark mind. And he wanted people to sit there and have to watch that.
Yeah.
It shows how sick he is.
Yeah, exactly. And this whole idea that, somehow this can be, a healing thing is just absolutely crazy.
Whatever.
I mean, he claimed that he could cure brain disorders like obsessive compulsive disorder, Tourette syndrome. And this was the reason why he would perform these experiments on people, is that this would somehow fix it. And to test the loyalty of NXIVM members, leaders demanded they follow strange and random commands. Members were asked to hurt themselves by doing things like running headfirst into a tree. They were even subjected to humiliation by being forced to do even stranger things like lick a mud puddle.
Ew.
I mean, to me, this just all sounds like ways to break somebody down.
Yeah,
like,
and just control them.
Yeah. Like you got to
like
do
hazing.
This. Yeah, it
in
is.
A sports group or a fraternity sorority situation.
Yeah, obviously way worse than that, but
in a way, that's what it's done
some
for.
fraternities do crazy shit like that. So
to make you feel like you're controlled.
Right. Well, it's how they get you in the group. To be like one of the
Prove
members.
yourself.
You got to do some shit.
Yeah,
it's not easy getting into our group.
It ain't easy.
Lick a puddle of mud. What the hell? But over time, the teachings and philosophies in NXIVM became more extreme and misogynistic, laying the groundwork for DOS, which stands for dominant over submissive, which ends up being the secret sex cult that's running within NXIVM. Members were taught that men had more primitive impulses and had a biological need to have multiple sexual partners and to have as many children as possible. Therefore, men were polygamous. On the other hand, women were nurturers who desired to be with one mate and to care for him and her children. So women were expected to be monogamous.
These are the most stupid stereotypes and generalizations of people I've ever seen. Like, yeah, most men, a lot of men, I mean, how can you even generalize people? Like, it's so ridiculous. Not every single woman is in a committed relationship and only wants to be with one person. And not all men want to have multiple partners. I mean, they're just mass generalizations. Maybe a majority of men, maybe. But I mean, first of all, this is such like textbook stuff. Why is he even acting like this is some revolutionary thing he figured out, that men tend to be more polygamous and women tend to be more monogamous? It's like not even that, like, whatever.
No, there's nothing groundbreaking about it.
No, and it's not all people either.
No.
It's just stupid. It doesn't mean anything.
Right. Women were also taught that it was their duty to have children and to care for those children. And according to Keith's teaching, the logical result is that women will leave the workforce and therefore don't actually deserve to be paid as much as men for equal work.
Oh, that's the cringiest shit I've
It's just sexist.
Right? How absurd. And can you imagine being a woman and joining this and being like, yeah, that sounds about right. Where do I sign?
Well,
like, what?
Trash.
I mean, it's hard. I hate to judge people that are in these cults. It's really hard. But at the same time, I'm just like, how can you like want to be part of this? How can you agree with this and say this is what my philosophy is? I mean, what?
I think a lot of people agree with that philosophy. That I think there's a lot of people out there still that aren't even in cults that believe that that's like a women, like, you know, it's a huge thing that's evolved over time. But I think if you went back 50, 60 years ago,
those are old fashioned beliefs.
It's old fashioned values.
And that's what I'm saying. It's nothing new that people believe that.
Right. So it's obviously more convenient for him because, as we'll find out, like being having multiple partners is what Keith's all about. So I think that's really what it is he
wants an excuse.
He put that in there because then it allows him the ability to say, look, I'm allowed to have multiple women. I'm allowed
but you get just me.
Right.
And that's how that's going to be.
Right.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I don't know. It's bizarre. In later years, his teachings morphed into a hierarchy system based on men having higher moral character than women, and women being flaky and erratic and in need of guidance and validation by men. Which just, I think in a lot of cases, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
I feel like men are flaky and erratic and need guidance and validation by women. Honestly, I think our world would be in a better place if it was flip-flopped, because I feel like so many men are out there like, I don't need that. I'm free and blah. But in reality is that's what they need. They men are wild to some extent, and like you need that ability. Like women don't need that as much. Like, and to just say that that's only a women thing is just so stupid, because it could be applied to either side. Yeah.
And I just think it's stupid in general to make these huge generalizations of people that all men are like this and all women are like this. Like, no, it's not. We see clearly everyone comes so differently in different lifestyles, and has nothing to do with your gender at the end of the day, really. No. I think.
No. I mean,
maybe we think it should be because that's what society's told us, but
there's a lot of people that are like nature. Look at our nature, and they go back to
to an extent that's an argument, but like I said, that's not all of it.
No. And in Keith's case, what's crazy and twisted about all of this is that he took all of these misogynistic concepts, wrapped them up and packaged them into ideas of female empowerment and feminism.
Yeah, he basically told them, like, you're a bunch of weak-minded women and you need my help to get your mind straight and really be successful in this life. Because if not, you're just like floating around as a little poor woman.
Yeah, I mean, he knew how to manipulate language, and like we'll play a clip here in a minute, but like it's so obvious that he's just full of shit. Like he says so many things that make no sense, that have like those words in it that are like, oh, okay, that sounds like a good word, or that has like some deep meaning to it. But in reality, he's like contradicting himself all the time, and he's saying again like misogynistic things, and then on the other end he's been like female empowerment. Yeah, women need to be more powerful and stand up and blah blah blah. And it's just like, which one is it, Keith? And it's just it's the way that he controls. He controlled the women that were a part of NXIVM. One of his strategies was his insistence to always have women in leadership positions at NXIVM. He told people he believed women made better leaders. In reality, he likely thought women would be easier to control than men, and that women in positions of power could more easily recruit other women. Which that's obviously it at the end of the day, is that he's going to have more success with getting more women into NXIVM if they're recruited by other women as opposed to men. Can you imagine if like men were running around like, hey, want to join this group?
Yes.
We'll make you more powerful. Like, no, like most women would be like, fuck off, dude. Like, why would I don't trust you.
Yeah,
like, there's
way
all
less
these,
trustworthy.
But if it's a woman, then you kind of like, is it true that like women kind of have like a connection with each other? Like you kind of have a
I think society in general is like made it so that men are seen as more dangerous and less trustworthy, like you were saying, versus a woman is like almost, well, I'm a woman, you're a woman. We both, to some degree, understand what discrimination is like as a woman. Therefore, you're probably more trustworthy because you're a woman, you're not going to screw over another fellow woman who is, unfortunately, we do have it harder in a lot of ways because we are women. So why would another female try and do this to me?
And especially because it's self-help. I think a lot of women think, look at her life and she's been bettered and maybe it could help me. And yeah, it's just, we don't trust men as much, especially because we hear stories all the time of human trafficking and it's normally men at the top or, murders or whatever. Just a lot of violence in general is most of the time it's men that do it.
Oh,
so
yeah. Well,
I think
statistically, you just look at the facts and that's the facts.
So obviously women commit crimes as well. But to the average person, I think you're less likely to think someone is trying to harm you or trick you if it's a woman.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think statistics show that that's true.
And that was what Maxwell's job was for Epstein.
That's why, and that's what we'll find out Allison Mack gets brought in to do. So before we start talking about some of the celebrities that were involved with NXIVM, as well as some of the darker aspects of this cult, I wanted to play a little clip of a YouTube video that's out there of Keith Raniere and Allison Mack, the Smallville actress, talking and just having a conversation. And Keith is talking about what is the authentic human. And it's like 14 minutes long, but we'll just play like a minute or two of it because it at least gives you some idea of what he sounded like, what he was like to listen to in these seminars and things like that when he talked about these things. So we'll play that.
Authenticity and creativity are an interesting match. We don't like to think of ourselves as robots. And if you are coming off as robotic, most people say that's somehow inauthentic. There has to be an inauthenticity to that because we're not robots. So what does it mean to be authentic? When someone's authentic, you feel them. You have this feeling of a soul there. Right. Not a robot, not some pre-programmed, contrived face or something along those lines. It just seems to come naturally from their experience of existing on this planet. From the time they are conceived and they become a child and grow and all of this thing, they gather this unique impression of existence. And authenticity somehow is a manifestation of all of that. And it also relates to wisdom. I always say wisdom is taking your life experience and being able to apply it in a decision. It's a global way of acting as opposed to a narrow way where, I feel like doing this. I'm not thinking of anything that ever happened to me. No lessons have ever been learned, and I'm just going to go and do this thing. Likewise, authenticity has no additional layers of artifice, no trying to be something that you think you should be. It's just a pure state of being. So one would say authenticity is being as you are and expressing as you are, at least to some degree.
So based on that clip, you can kind of see how Keith comes across to people and how he kind of has this way of speaking that I guess if you listen to him for long enough that you might start thinking, okay, he knows some shit. But at the same time, I'm like, it just sounds like a bunch of fucking mumbo jumbo that he's rolling together. But let's go ahead and get into some of the celebrities that are involved with this and some of the other dark aspects and dark things that took place in the NXIVM cult. But before we do, we want to thank our last sponsors for today. During these economically turbulent times, everyone is looking for a way to feel more financially secure. So if you're still needlessly throwing money every month at high interest credit card debt, it's time you checked out Upstart, the revolutionary online lending platform that knows you're more than just a credit score. Now's the time to find out how low your Upstart rate can be to help pay off high interest credit card debt. Unlike other lenders, Upstart can reward you based on your education and job history in the form of a smarter rate. You don't need a degree or a diploma to apply though. Upstart lets you skip going to the bank because it's completely online. They offer loans from $1,000 to $50,000 so you can consolidate your debt into one easy fixed rate payment. Upstart makes it fast and simple to check your rate since it's just a soft pull. It won't affect your credit score. The hard pull happens if you accept your rate and proceed with the application. The best part, if the loan is approved and accepted, most people get their funds the very next business day. Free yourself from the burden of high interest credit card debt and get back to using your money your way with Upstart. See why Upstart has 4.9 out of 5 rating on Trustpilot and hurry to upstart.com/milehigher to find out how low your Upstart rate can be. Checking your rate only takes a few minutes. That's upstart.com/milehigher.
I really believe in having clean options. I love to support companies that have innovative products that break the norm and help clean up my daily routine. And that's why I love Native. And I truly do. Native is, in my opinion, the best natural deodorant on the market. Native deodorant doesn't just block odor better, it's made better. It has ingredients that you've heard of, such as coconut oil, shea butter, and tapioca starch. And it's also vegan, so it's never tested on animals. Switching to an aluminum-free deodorant doesn't mean you have to sacrifice odor protection, though. Native will keep you smelling and feeling fresh all day. They have so many nice and unique scents. I personally love the lavender and rose. I just like floral scents. And recently, Native has come out with plastic-free packaging, which is so cool. So do what I did and make the switch to Native today by going to nativedeo.com/milehigher20 or use promo code milehigher20 at checkout, and you'll get 20% off your first order. That's nativedeo.com/milehigher20 and use promo code milehigher20 at checkout for 20% off your first order.
So during the first 5 years that NXIVM was around, it grew exponentially. The organization amassed over 3,700 regular participants, including notable executives, entrepreneurs, socialites, and actors. Of particular note were Mexico's president's daughter, Ana Cristina Fox, as well as Claire and Sarah Bronfman, who are heiresses to the Seagram liquor fortune. Now, I wanted to briefly just talk about the Bronfman family for a second, because the Bronfman family ended up being one of the biggest financiers of NXIVM and is still in control of NXIVM today. Some people have compared the Bronf family as, North America's Rothschild family. Like, they've got significant wealth that goes back generations and generations. They're a Canadian-American Jewish family, and it owes its initial fame to Samuel Bronfman back in 1889, who made a fortune in the alcoholic distilled beverage business during American Prohibition. And that was the Seagram family. Now, what's interesting is that Claire and Sarah's father, Edgar Bronfman Sr., knew about what was going on in NXIVM. And he was deeply concerned about what things were going on and what he had heard. And he wanted to know what his girls were up to because he was worried about them. Now, this is kind of jumping ahead to court documents, but I think it's important to understand this right now, is that later on court documents would reveal the massive gutting by the Bronfman daughters of their family trust funds to help finance NXIVM and the alleged investment schemes of its leader, Keith Raniere. The amount, reportedly $100 million, was what was released. But according to legal filings and public documents, in the last 6 years, as much as $150 million were taken out of the Bronfman's trusts and bank accounts, including $66 million allegedly used to cover Keith's failed bets in the commodities market. That's fucking crazy. They literally gave him $65 million that he fucking lost, just straight up lost playing the commodities market, as well as $30 million to buy real estate in Los Angeles and around Albany, $11 million for a 22-seat, 2-engine jet, and millions more to support a barrage of lawsuits across the country against NXIVM's enemies. So literally the Bronfman family, NXIVM really couldn't have been what it ended up being without the support. And what's interesting is a lot of people put the Edgar Sr., the father, says, he knew about it, but how much did he really know? So the fact that they were siphoning so much money from him and from the family fortune into this is very concerning. And, the fact that Claire Bronfman is now in control of it to this day, now that Keith's out of it. But we'll talk about that more in a sec. But this was interesting to me, is that Claire is quoted as saying that when talking about, Keith hedging his bets in the commodities market and all of that, she said, unfortunately, my father, Edgar Bronfman Sr., he wanted to thwart Keith's investments, so he manipulated the entire commodities market in tandem with the Illuminati. And that was a quote unquote statement that Claire Bronfman made about her father, which is interesting because that's where people think that, the Bronfman, along with these other elite families that we've talked about before, are involved in, the New World Order conspiracy and the Illuminati and all of that. And literally we have a statement where she says exactly that her father's working with them. Damn. I just thought that was really interesting. Another interesting thing to know about Claire Bronfman and the Bronfman family was that they are involved in, supporting political figures, including making a large contribution to the Clinton campaign. And Claire's brother, Stephen, also is the biggest contributor to the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau's campaign. So, a lot of people go wild with the conspiracies with those two and, the histories and all of that. But I think it's interesting to note that the Bronfmans are tied in with the Clintons, especially, tied into NXIVM and all this. Yeah. I mean, it's like taking contributions from everybody, man. And from shady people. But eventually NXIVM caught the attention of Rick Allen Ross, a cult investigator. And in the early 2000s, he obtained copies of NXIVM's manual. Participating members were required to sign non-disclosure agreements. When excerpts from the manual were published on Ross's website, along with a professional assessment from a psychiatrist who labeled it, quote unquote, expensive brainwashing, NXIVM responded by suing the Ross Institute and the member who leaked the manual for copyright infringement. So there you go, silencing people that are, leaking any sort of information or truth from their organization. And they were all under the impression that the outlet was writing a positive story on how NXIVM helped people. While the cases were eventually dismissed, they sent a powerful message of swift retaliation to anyone who defied NXIVM. And that's like one of the biggest things with them, and where they draw similarities with Scientology is that they will sue your ass. If you try to expose them or try to leak things, like they will come after you however they can legally. In 2003, Keith Raniere and other high-ranking people at NXIVM were invited to participate in interviews with Forbes, and they were all under the impression that the outlet was writing a positive story on how NXIVM helped people. But instead, Forbes published a scathing story featuring allegations that NXIVM was a cult and evidence to back them up. And the article featured comments from Edgar Bronfman. His daughters Claire and Sarah Bronfman were early supporters of the organization. They had deeper pockets than most to support NXIVM's endless legal battles. Edgar told Forbes that he believed his daughters had been manipulated into giving a substantial amount of their fortune to a cult. And in later years, it came to light that the sisters had, quote unquote, loaned NXIVM $2 million. But instead of a cash reimbursement with interest, the loan was repaid through private phone calls and fitness sessions. Whatever the fuck that means. And obviously it was way more than $2 million. NXIVM leaders fiercely defended their reputation by taking legal action against anyone who criticized them and against former members who spoke out about their experiences. The cult used its expansive wealth and the wealth of supporters like Claire and Sarah Bronfman to file lawsuits against anyone who left NXIVM. For good measure, leaders even gave false statements to law enforcement officials to encourage bogus criminal investigations against defectors. NXIVM members called the defection of former members, quote unquote, the fall, and labeled them Luciferians, lost people for whom bad feels good and good feels bad. And by 2014, Keith Raniere upped his game in his defense of NXIVM. He founded a fake news website called The Knife of Aristotle to spread propaganda. Members rarely saw adverse media reports about their leader, NXIVM, because Keith slandered any news that couldn't come from the knife of Aristotle. He told members that watching or reading other sources of news was traitorous. The tentacles of NXIVM reached beyond a single organization. Various societies for women and men associated with NXIVM were developed to identify new recruits, and even an international chain of child care centers called the Rainbow Cultural Garden was established in 2006. And these fucking Rainbow Cultural Gardens are still operating today in France, Guatemala, and the United Kingdom.
Oh my gosh.
And this program claims that it can teach children as young as 2 years old up to 7 languages simultaneously.
That's got to be so confusing as a 2-year-old. What the hell?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. But in reality, according to cult expert Rick Allen Ross, he said that it has nothing to do with teaching languages to children. It's about indoctrinating children to be like Keith Raniere. He was the prototype, and he was always interested in cloning himself and perpetuating his ideas. So it's literally a way to keep his legacy going, like is what these child care centers are. And I mean, who fucking knows? There could be even more evil shit going on there than we even know. But
yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. So this is right around the time when Smallville actresses Kristen Crook and Allison Mack were recruited in 2010. Kristen left the group in 2013, but Allison became a confirmed recruiter and became a significant player in obviously the darker shit that surrounds NXIVM.
Significant.
Yes. She quickly rose the ranks to second in command for her role as a high-level recruiter, which I don't even want to know all the things she had to do to get to second in command that quickly. An early defector and vocal critic of NXIVM and Keith was a woman named Tony Natalie, and she helped shed light on many of the cult's dangerous practices. Natalie explained that Keith used her insecurities and vulnerabilities against her, locking her in a vicious cycle of loyalty to her oppressor. After Keith paired up with Nancy Salzman, Natalie's relationship with him deteriorated. She described the partnership between Keith and Salzman like putting 2 volatile chemicals together in a mad scientist's lab. The resulting compound was both explosive and dangerous. Keith and Nancy worked together to make Natalie's life miserable. They accused her of stealing money and filed lawsuits against her. They took her mail and even hacked into her hard drives looking for blackmail materials. And this is just a small taste of the heinous crimes to come. So that leads us to DOS, or Dominus Obsequious Sororium, which is a Latin phrase translated to master over slave women.
Wow, just be upfront about it.
Yeah, seriously. So DOS was first revealed by the New York Times in 2017, thanks to a person, an ex-employee of NXIVM that actually broke the story. And we'll talk about him more later. But this was the first time that the world really got a look into what was actually happening inside of NXIVM, and that NXIVM consisted of a hierarchy of female slaves and male masters, which obviously the male master was Keith Raniere. Basically, this was a sick and twisted secret sisterhood that was rooted in the misogynistic teachings of NXIVM. And what they did was they would subtly implant ideas that, women are subservient to men, and women that joined were groomed and manipulated into engaging into sex acts with Keith Raniere. And through her work as a recruiter for NXIVM, Allison Mack targeted women who could later be brought into DOS, and she was paid to do so. And building on Keith's teachings, Allison convinced desperate, vulnerable women that the secret sorority was somewhere that women could feel empowered and gain confidence. Allison was an integral part of the early practices of the secret sisterhood, and she engineered a branding process that was part of the initiation. And the women were branded with this symbol that when you flip it to the side is a KR, and then when you look at it just straight on is an AM. So literally their initials.
How fucked up is that? And they branded them with that without even telling them what it is.
Yeah.
Imagine being branded with something and you have no idea even.
Well, and they lied too at
name.
first. They were like, it's a tattoo.
Yeah. They said it was a tattoo and that it was like some type of geometric or like some type of symbol. Yeah.
They'd like work you into it. They'd manipulate you and work you into it.
It's so scary. And they talked a lot about this. There was a 2020 that came out with an interview on one of the women that were in it, and that A&E special I mentioned earlier, and just hearing their experience of what it was like to be branded.
Yeah. Stripped naked.
Terrible.
Blindfolded.
Yeah.
And then held down on a table by your other sisters.
Yeah.
And they forced you to spread your legs, put your arms up over your head, and your wrists were bound and your feet were secured. And then while being videotaped, they would start the branding process. And they would literally, you know, a lot of people think that branding is like they have a stamp, like a hot stamp, and you just stick it on
like for
there.
animals.
Right.
Because that's what they do for animals, right? I believe.
Yeah. A lot of the times it's something like that because you got to do it quickly.
Yeah.
So that's fast.
But
faster
this is
to do that.
40-minute thing with a
with a cottering iron or whatever it's called. Yeah. And they basically hold this down in your skin and very slowly pull it over your skin as it just burns the flesh.
Oh, that's so scary.
And opens up a gaping
And this
wound.
is something that you're going to have on your body forever. Like you can never get it
can't
removed.
really cover this up either with the tattoo even.
And it's his fucking name. Can you imagine as a victim?
Yeah.
Oh, how sick. That makes me so
Yeah,
mad.
and they were like, this is an honor to have this on you.
This
you know?
symbol. It's
Should
bonding
be
us all.
proud. You know, they used it as a way to, you know, build you up. Like you get through this.
And some of the women, they did this at Allison Mack's house.
Yep.
Can you believe that?
Yep.
She was totally on board with all of this.
Yeah. Well, and if you didn't, a lot of things that happened too was that if you refused or you fell out of line, they would straight up beat you.
Oh, yeah.
They'd beat you physically.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh.
And not only that, they would, if you came into this like a little overweight or a little more weight than Keith's liking, they would literally force you into an extreme weight loss like diet, like where you were forced or you were beaten essentially.
And, you know, it's hard to imagine why you would want to stay if you saw these people being branded. Like, why would you stay?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of them just felt like they really did have no other choice. They had all this blackmail. They've already invested all into it. And they've spent a lot of time. And yeah.
They called it collateral.
Really
in order to be initiated into this,
you had to have some collateral.
DOS.
Yeah.
You got to give us something. And that's what Allison would say is you got to give us some sort of blackmail material. So women would hand over their nude pictures or videos of them masturbating. Sometimes they wrote false accusations of sexual abuse against loved ones. How fucked up is that?
Yeah. Shit about their family.
Seriously.
Just messed up.
And if you didn't check in with your master, they face severe punishment. Part of these check-ins entailed texting graphic pictures of their unshaven genitalia with their face clearly visible. They were also subjected to drills where they had to respond to texts from their masters within 60 seconds, often in the middle of the night. Jesus. Allison Mack instructed the women to seduce Keith Raniere, supposedly an act of empowerment. They were led to believe that Keith was a pawn being used by the women of DOS, utterly unaware that in reality they were his sex slaves. Yeah, fucking right. He fucking knew this whole time. That's how he set it up.
Yeah.
And they were not allowed to engage in sexual activity with anyone else. And if they misbehaved, they were beaten with a fucking paddle. Not only that, Allison Mack and Keith Raniere were planning an elaborate sex dungeon with cages and a variety of BDSM sex toys in the basement of the main DOS building.
Ew.
But the plan was shut down when the federal investigations into NXIVM started to ramp up. They were literally going to do it in like the company's fucking, they'd have like a sex dungeon in the fucking, which again, this is like something that Ken and I talked about the other night was like, you know, it's one thing, like whatever, if you're into a sex dungeon, BDSM and all that, whatever, that's fine.
Right.
But why do you need to also incorporate this control aspect to it? Like, why couldn't, if this is purely a sexual thing for Keith, there's a lot of other ways to go about having this, like,
There's
if you want to have
probably
sex
plenty
with a
of
lot of women,
consenting
orgies, all that, like, fine, go do that. But why do you need to, you know,
Force
have
people into
slaves and have fucking control over
the whole concept of how he called people slaves and wanted people to refer to themselves as slaves is so weird.
Right.
And he had other recruiters make, you know, women underneath them call them, say that they were slaves as well.
Yeah.
It's just like, what?
Right. And that's why this immediately goes into sex trafficking. Like this is exactly what it is. Forced sex.
And I
all
think
that.
the women that were in it didn't think they were actually slaves. I mean, they told them this is more of like a name. Like this is more of a, you know, master grasshopper type of thing.
Right. Guru, disciple, that type of relationship. It's like a spiritual term.
You just call it slave, but it doesn't actually mean you're my slave. Like, we're good.
No, but it's clearly it means that. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Allison Max and Keith Raniere's scheme really started to crumble when a Canadian actress named Sarah Edmondson went public with her harrowing experience with the Secret Sisterhood. Edmondson was recruited in 2005 and didn't leave the cult until 2017. And during that time, she rose through the ranks. She even started a Canadian section of NXIVM and collected commission from the members who were recruited there. But once she was recruited into DOS, it all started to unravel, and she began to see NXIVM for the criminal organization it really was. She also provided many known details about the initiation process into DOS, where women were blindfolded, naked, and forced to be branded, obviously with a cauterizing pen. Sarah explained that the most sinister concepts of DOS were introduced in the early stages of NXIVM membership, such as collateralizing money. This phrase basically meant paying a small fee if you missed a goal or skipped a planned task, like going to the gym. It was promoted as a motivator to keep people focused and driven. When the idea of collateral is then introduced as nude pictures and sexually explicit videos, the women are more likely to readily accept it as a regular practice. So they started out small, like, if you don't, go to the gym or work out today, you need to pay this or whatever. Yeah. And so
until you're complete controlled.
Right. Yeah. It's just another method to, take control of somebody. The basic principles of DOS were rooted in sadomasochism and kink culture. Keith Raniere exploited these consensual sex acts and used them to control women. While the women believed they were giving consent, valid consent was actually impossible because they had no idea what was happening under the surface. Keith propagated the idea that having sex with him was the closest a woman could get to an enlightenment. Wow.
God.
What kind of fucking, narcissist do you have to be?
He sounds like Charles Manson almost with that
Seriously.
line.
No, it really does. He claimed that when a woman swallowed his semen, she saw a beautiful, transcendent blue light.
Fucking throw up.
I can guarantee you that any woman who swallows any semen is not seeing that.
Yeah, definitely not seeing a blue light.
He also forced women to participate in group oral sex sessions. If they refused, he criticized them and accused them of not being committed to their own personal and spiritual growth.
What the fuck? How do you even argue that?
I don't know. I guess when you're indoctrinated to that point, you're on board. And Allison Mack was a crucial component in all this manipulation. In a sense, she was the muscle standing behind Keith and threatening the women with blackmail or financial ruin if they didn't fall in line. She was like
freak she was.
His henchman.
Yeah. Totally.
So on top of already having to do all of Keith's dirty work of manipulating, threatening, and brainwashing women, she was also one of his sex slaves too. What a fucking bad gig that is. On top of having to do all this shit, you're also forced to be his sex slave too. So Jesus. Nancy Salzman's daughter, Lauren Salzman, also became a recruiter for DOS and would demonstrate extreme loyalty to Keith. And because the recruiters did such a good job promoting DOS as an unconventional and empowering feminist group run by women for women, the sadistic section of NXIVM Cult was literally hidden in plain sight. What remains of the Secret Sisterhood is being run by actress Nikki Klein, who married Allison Mack in 2017. Under her rule, women are still subjected to drills and are still physically punished if they fall out of line.
How can it be possible that this can still run right now?
Because they're hiding it. They're hiding it under these different layers of things. And
we're just a sorority.
Right. We're just a group of people. It's speculated that Keith Raniere created DOS after the death of his longtime companion and accomplice, Pam Kaffritz. For years, Keith was dependent on Pam to keep his personal relationships on solid ground. She became well known at the local Planned Parenthood because she was Keith's go-to person to accompany his girlfriends to the clinic to get abortions.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the downfall of NXIVM, which, NXIVM's not really gone even now, but at least the downfall of Keith Raniere. So after the branding went public in the New York Times story, that's when the FBI got involved and started doing an investigation into NXIVM. And so it became very clear and very quickly that obviously there was a lot of shit that was illegal going on inside of NXIVM. So in late 2017, Keith Raniere and his closest confidants fled to Mexico. Keith and Lauren Salzman were hiding out in a luxury villa outside Puerto Vallarta and planning an elaborate recommitment ceremony for members of DOS, which was basically code for group oral sex. But their plans were canceled when Mexican authorities arrived at their door in March of 2018. And Salzman and Keith retreated to the master bedroom and barricaded the door. And in true cowardly fashion, Keith tried to hide in a closet.
I love that.
At the end of the day, Keith is a fucking coward. He was arrested and then brought back to the United States for indictment, and Allison Mack was arrested the following month. And one by one, high-ranking members and leaders in NXIVM were arrested and charged, including Nancy Salzman, Lauren Salzman, a bookkeeper named Kathy Russell, and Claire Bronfman. Now, Nancy Salzman, the co-founder of NXIVM, was the first defendant to enter a guilty plea. She admitted to tracking suspected defectors and monitoring usernames and passwords of suspected moles in the group to ensure they weren't leaking details about what was going on inside and destroying video evidence that documented some of the bizarre teachings of NXIVM. Lauren Salzman also pled guilty to one count of racketeering conspiracy, admitting to willfully participating in the enslavement of a woman in a locked room from March 2010 to April 2012. And the way that she kept her in this room was that she threatened to deport her to Mexico if she did not complete the requested labor. How fucked up is that?
So fucked up.
Allison Mack, the highest profile person involved in the case, pled guilty on April 8th to one count of racketeering conspiracy and one count of racketeering. And apparently she took full responsibility for involvement in NXIVM and DOS, and even admitting to coercing women into giving her embarrassing information and photographs as collateral. Which racketeering or a racket, according to the current definition, is an organized criminal activity or act in which the criminal is some form of substantial business or a way to earn illegal money, blah, blah, blah. So that's exactly what they were doing. I'm just surprised that they hit him with racketeering and not with sex trafficking and some of these other charges that Keith gets hit with. It's kind of weird that they seemingly got very minimal charges there. Now, Keith Raniere's trial lasted 7 weeks, and at a Brooklyn courthouse on March 14th, he was facing charges for forced labor, wire fraud conspiracy, human trafficking, sex trafficking, and child pornography charges. And according to prosecutors, he documented himself with a 15-year-old girl who would later go on to become his first sex slave. The charge was actually thrown out, but they also accused Keith of having a sexual relationship with at least one other child and possessing child pornography between 2005 and 2018. Also, per court papers, multiple people testified that he had a den in Nancy Salzman's house in upstate New York, where he had sex with some of his slaves in an oddly arranged room. The bed was elevated and a hot tub was underneath the bed.
What?
How
does that even make sense?
Yeah, that's so weird. But on June 19, 2019, Keith Raniere was found guilty on all counts, and the list of federal crimes included sex trafficking of children and conspiracy to commit forced labor. But what's crazy is, as of right now, Keith Raniere is awaiting sentencing. Mm-hmm. All of them are awaiting sentencing.
And it's been a really
long time.
Why?
We're talking since last year.
And no one knows why?
Yeah, we don't really know why. I think he's delaying it. He's trying to get a new trial right now for whatever reason. He's delaying the process. Yeah.
Trash.
Yeah, he does.
Typical narcissist.
And I mean, Allison Mack, she kind of all the other women pled guilty to it. He's the only one that took it to trial. And
of course.
Yeah, of course he does. He doesn't think that, but they're all awaiting sentencing. Allison Mack was actually released on a $5 million bond, and she's currently under house arrest with her parents in California. But where is NXIVM now? So NXIVM is still around. It's in full out war mode and has moved to Brooklyn. And it's being run and financed still by Claire Bronfman. Claire Bronfman.
After all that.
Yeah. And she admitted to harboring an undocumented individual and helping Keith use a deceased woman's credit card. She pleaded guilty to conspiracy to conceal and harbor an illegal alien for financial gain. But if this isn't white privilege, I don't know what is, because they are all out. She's out living her life, awaiting her sentencing or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Allison Mack's awaiting her sentencing.
Why?
Meanwhile, people are getting locked up for 20 years for a little bit of weed. It's fucking crazy.
The fuck?
That this kind of shit is not taken more seriously. Now, the person who was really responsible for whistleblowing on this whole thing was Frank Parlato, who was, he was actually the publicist. He was kind of their guy that was hired to go out and destroy all of their defectors and enemies and ruin them, and he got paid accordingly. And he got fired, and he was owed $1 million or something, and he took that, and then NXIVM accused him of stealing it, I think is what happened. So he just totally turned on him and completely exposed them, and he was the one that revealed the branding's initiation and gave the story to the New York Times and all of that. But what's interesting is that according to Frank, NXIVM is still a 200-member cult headed up by Claire Bronfman, and apparently she is the enforcer, the brutal one. She's running the operation now, and she's the most ruthless of all of them.
Jeez.
He went on to say that, I'm issuing an absolute warning now. Claire Bronfman is a true fanatic, and if there's a Jim Jones situation, everyone will commit suicide but her.
Wow.
Damn.
Claire, who's 38 now, has moved to be near the federal lockup just east of South Brooklyn, where Raniere is being held without bail.
Wow.
And
so they're still probably working together and everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. There's also some members of NXIVM that are in Mexico now, because NXIVM was like all over the world. It got global at one point, but obviously after all this went down, a lot of people left. But there's still a lot of people that really still believe in Vanguard. They still believe in Keith, and they are totally still drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah.
It's just crazy to think about how many women, all of these women, had recruited into it, and how, those women recruited other women, and how it just got spread. And a lot of them didn't realize they were bringing their friends and family into such a bad situation.
Yeah, literally into a sex slavery cult. That's exactly what it is.
So terrifying. And I mean, stories like this just show you gotta, and this is again why you gotta stand up and look for your own information, not just believe anything that anyone's telling you or some narrative, because you'll end up falling for everything.
Yeah. I mean, you just never know what their true intentions are behind people's words and what they're saying to you. Like, there could be something completely hidden from you. It could be a totally, counterproductive thing they're telling you in order to draw you in,
and that's what they're doing.
Yeah. So Keith is facing 15 at a minimum up to life in prison.
He should get fucking life.
I bet he's going to get a 20-year sentence or something.
Get some bullshit.
Yeah. He'll probably be out before he's...
Who even knows when he's going to get sentenced?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been like over a year.
I know. It's very weird that
it is.
You would think for such a high profile case like this and a high profile individual like Keith Raniere that they would hustle this along a little bit and get his ass sentenced. And it's very weird how the justice system works for these rich elites. They are able to, draw things out for as long as they need to and come up with new ways to fight their case.
And I don't think there's that much public pressure either. Like, not many people know about this or are talking about this. I mean, obviously a lot of people have heard of it, but they don't know the latest of what's going on with Keith and the sentencing.
No.
Just because it hasn't been in the media that much.
No, it doesn't
get talked about.
Not at all.
When this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, when it first broke, I remember it was on the news and stuff, but it's kind of just trickled off. I'm sure a lot of people kind of forgot about it or never had heard of it and no idea.
And this is a dangerous individual.
Yeah, absolutely. A dangerous individual.
Should not be allowed to honestly leave a cell because he's going to go do it again.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is kind of like a slap on the wrist for this dude for how much damage he caused. If he's going to get out, what's to say he's not going to do some other bullshit?
His shit's still running.
Yeah,
NXIVM's still going. Like, it's not like it got shut down
and
permanently.
He'll go right back to it if it's only 15 years. I mean,
just
let's hope it's
better.
not 15 years. Damn, that would be such a slap in the face to victims. God, I mean, I'm hoping for life, but
I am
too.
We'll see.
And I mean, we don't know when that's going to be either. There's no date.
I haven't heard anything about
sentences.
that. Nope.
It's so weird. Normally they do that shit pretty fast. I don't know.
It's very weird. It's very weird. But you guys will have to let us know what you think about Keith Raniere and NXIVM, and if there's anything out there. This is a huge topic, so obviously we can't cover absolutely every little bit or every victim story because there's so much with this. It's truly interesting and disturbing all at the same time. But definitely let us know your thoughts on this, and what do you think should happen to Keith, and Do you think the others, Allison, do you think they're getting off too easy? Because honestly, I think they should be slapped with some of these other charges. I mean, they aided in sex trafficking, they aided in these other things, and they're literally getting racketeering charges. Like what?
That's so ridiculous.
Like they're probably gonna walk free. Honestly, they'll probably get a fine or might serve a little jail time, but they're gonna be fine. They're gonna be back out living their lives.
Absurd.
Meanwhile, there's permanent damage done to so many people out there.
Some people are still trying to put their lives together and somehow recover from this.
Yeah. But I guess we'll have to just wait and see. But with that being said, that is it for us today. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode of the Mile Higher Podcast. If you did, be sure to give us a like on YouTube, subscribe, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all the places.
Go check out our merch at milehigher.com.
Yeah, and go check out Lights Out. If you want something else to listen to, go check out my other show.
Definitely.
But that's it. Until next time, stay safe.
And stay woke.